So welcome everyone who's here. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day and attending our All About Product webinar. First of all, my name is Amber. I am from Talent International. We are a global IT and product recruitment company. I work here in our Germany office, and we work across contract and permanent roles in the DACH region. I'm also joined here today by my colleague Faustine. She's from our marketing team. She has done an amazing job at helping me put this together. She will be here moderating our chat today and just making sure everything runs smoothly from a technical point of view. So thank you, Faustine. Then of course, we've got our 4 amazing speakers who are joining us today. So huge thanks to Lisa, Marissa, Bertrand and Levi. They are going to be covering a few different topics. So we've got, the perks and benefits of hiring freelancers, respectful stakeholder conduct, building inclusive product teams, as well as a product vision workshop as well. After their presentations and talks, we will have like a Q&A session at the end. So just make sure that you're asking lots of questions throughout their talks. Just make sure that you use the voting on the questions, because we will prioritize the questions that have the most votes. What we hope to do is have enough questions to create some content after the event as well. So any that we don't answer, we will try and come back about. From here now, I will just introduce our first speaker. So we've got Levi Dietrich, who is a freelance product consultant for Otto, and he's going to be talking about the perks and benefits of hiring freelancers. So thank you, Levi.
Yes. Should I start right away?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Then let me just share my screen. Okay. Let me hit the little play button here. Okay, so as already mentioned, I will talk about the topic full-time employees versus freelancers. But before we start jumping into that topic, I would like to give you a short summary of who I am and what I do. Already said, Levi is my name. I'm a product consultant and product director, living 30 minutes away from Hamburg in a small village called Lütjensee or Little Lake. And my hobbies are Pablo, which has nothing to do with narcotrafico. It's just my dog. I'm into self-improvement, gaming, sports. And if you would like to learn more about me or just contact me, slide in my DMs. And I'm looking forward to hear from you or read from you. So what's the situation? I have to admit that my title of the whole presentation is a little bit clickbaity, because this is not going to be a versus situation, full-time employees are better or freelancers are better, because there are definitely projects and contexts where every role and every type of hiring or contracting has its pros and cons. But the thing here is, especially on the German market, and I think it's also a topic of general on the European markets, is that the value of freelancers is often underestimated or used wrong from my perspective. And I will focus on the product management context here. And things that I hear really often are we would like to do some work with freelancers, but our product is just too complex. And which is not a big thing, to be honest, because freelance product managers are really good in quick and fast onboardings. And we definitely can add value from early stage on. Another thing is that we often hear that full-time employees are cheaper, which is a misbelief. If you would like to learn more about this, Bertrand wrote a really nice article on freelanceproductmanagers.com. Check it out if you'd like to read something about freelance product management and freelancing in general. I also have some articles there, but never mind. The next thing is that I really often hear from my very special little snowflakes out there that we're different than other companies. And this is totally true. I mean, like every company is different, but this doesn't mean that you cannot work with freelancers. Maybe you just have to change your perspective or like approach this whole situation differently than other companies. But let's talk about this. Loading time. There it is. FPM scenarios nowadays. So how is it done today in many companies? There are like cases that I observe very often, and they hurt so bad because nothing hurts more than unused potential. And it often feels that freelancers are used like the guys and girls from the replacement bench that you call in when someone is leaving or on parental leaves, or they have some other good reasons to be on vacation. And this is perfectly fine. I mean, you can do this. But if you do this, I can also understand how you think or why you think that freelancers are expensive, because this is not the best case, in my opinion, to work with freelancers. It is a way, but it's not the best way. Because freelancers are not just additional working power. They are like more like external experience and insight that you can use as a plugin for your company and to supercharge your whole innovation. But let's talk about this. So as mentioned, where you really can profit from freelancers is when you buy their experience and their insights, because you always have to keep in mind, and this is not only valid for, sorry, this is my smoothing thing here. The thing here is that you're buying experiences and insights, because freelancers are like working with a lot of different companies. They have seen different scenarios. They have worked with different teams. They have like mastered already a lot of different challenges, and the chances are really high that some of those challenges that you are like facing right now are already have been mastered by them. And I don't see why you shouldn't use their experience to help you like keep your things going. And the next thing is like you have a new perspective if you hire a freelance, because what I know from my job as a freelancer or even in the companies is that teams have their goals. In product management, this might be like going for roadmap, making stakeholders happy and delivering features. And in those times, it might be difficult to have a look on the left and the right side and see the potentials that you have for your product. And you can use freelancers to identify new potentials, like get them, send them to identify something, then you check it with your business goals, set some KPIs, and then you can go even into like feature and product discoveries. They can prepare everything for your main team. And then when your team has delivered their part, you can align and then just go ahead and add more value. And this is a chance that I see. So it is like a chance to unleash more potential, to add more value to your product or general to your project, just by combining freelancers with your team in the right situations. I really hope I'm in time, right? Like how many minutes have I left? Doesn't matter. I will try.
Well, 4 more minutes.
4 more minutes. Nice. Then I can slow down. This is cool. Yeah, like I mentioned some reasons why I can work with freelancers, like additional experience, additional insights, use them as plugins. And the cool thing here is you can also start small. I mean, I get it if you're like a small company and you don't have that much budget, or you're unsure if this is the right thing. Just check if it's possible to get some coaching or impulses or just some shorter periods where you team up with a freelancer. Because you can use them as a plugin, as I mentioned earlier. They can share their experiences, their knowledge with your team. And when the phase is over, the knowledge is not gone. Like you have already like transferred the knowledge into your team. And this is like a really cool thing from my perspective. the next thing is you can sit down with them, identify some focus areas. This is something that I have done in the past, and talk about some areas that you want to improve, like prioritization, or how can you like improve the impact of your features. And then you define a phase, like some time of a project, set some KPIs, and then you do the coaching. And if it fits for you, you can increase the project scope, you can change the freelance if you feel unsure, but this is just a like a small step into this thing. And this is what I would recommend for a lot of companies. If you're unsure, like hiring freelancers for longer time, start small. It's a good thing, like the MVP thing that we all talk about like every day, and this can also be applied here. Oh, it's so good that I have so much time left. So conclusion. I really hope that most of you are still awake right now. And but just in case, I will do a short recap. So as mentioned earlier, I personally think that there is no situation like full-time employee versus freelancers, but there's a lot of unused potential. There are chances to supercharge your teams, your work, get some innovation, some external experiences into your company, and then going ahead, move in front of your competitors just by working with other experts. They have seen so many places, so many experiences. Use it for you. And I can't not say this too often. This is something I really would recommend. And as mentioned, start small, do some coaching, do impulse things, just talk with them. Maybe you find some areas where you find like situations where they can help you, challenges that you have. And yeah, that's basically it from my side. Was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions after all the talks.
Thank you so much, Levi. That was awesome.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, as you're saying, like the value is super underestimated. And I think, yeah, one thing about, yeah, the onboarding being super fast and efficient with freelancers is, yeah, a huge asset. And I mean, I think, yeah, adding to what you've said, like one thing that a misconception as well is people often say, you know, we want to build our core team. You know, freelance is not part of our core team, but I mean, they're often, as you say, they're joining at a very, very important time. So just because they're there for a short time doesn't mean that they're not part of something important. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And now we've got Lisa Mo-Wagner, who is the head of consumer and apps at Mobil, and she is going to be talking to us about how to build a safe and inclusive team environment. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, hi everybody. Let me quickly share my screen as well. Here we go. We're talking about a JEDI discovery and delivery. Personally, I've been passionate about D&I for a long time, which is diversity and inclusion. And if we think, especially in product, as product managers, we're here to build products that our customers love. And chances are your customer base is diverse. And while we don't want to build for everyone, we should be aware of the impact our products can have. Hiring a diverse team is a more long-term strategy. It's important. So if you're trying to hire a diverse team, please keep going. But I kind of want to talk about how we can actually create more inclusive teams right now and already create the environment so that you can retain that diverse talent. But yeah, why am I talking about JEDI? What's up with the Star Wars reference? Let's quickly look into what JEDI stands for. It's an acronym. It stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I have fairly recently learned about it, so I'll just very quickly give you a definition of each of these things in this acronym so that we're all on the same page. Let's start a bit in the middle with diversity, because that's the one we've probably all heard before. Diversity just describes all the differences between us, based on which we either experience advantages or possibly encounter barriers to opportunities. Then we got inclusion. Again, probably something we've heard about quite a bit. which means we want to foster a sense of belonging by actually centering, valuing, and amplifying the voices of those that actually experience barriers to opportunities based on their identities. Now let's get into the other two bits that are really interesting. You can kind of see it in the picture as well. Equality is not where we should stop. We need to do more than that, and that's where equity comes in. So this means we're allocating resources in a way that ensures everyone has access to the same opportunities. So it recognizes that advantages and barriers actually exist, like all the isms, basically. And then justice goes even one step further because it really wants to dismantle the barriers to resources and opportunities in society so that everybody, all individuals, all communities can live a full and dignified life. So this is kind of our starting point. We're just going to continue with those Star Wars references. So a lot of the time when we think about diversity, the first thing that comes to mind is gender, then maybe race, or whatever that means, ethnicity, background, those kinds of things. And then we're already kind of like, so what else is there? And those are the things we can somewhat mostly see. But I just want to challenge you to take a second to think about what might be other dimensions of diversity. You might just be ignoring right now because they're not as obvious and in your face as maybe gender potentially is. This is just an example and by no means an extensive list, but here are a few more things that might have an impact, like language, a nationality that you might not necessarily see, social class, which might, give you a different experience than other people, personality traits, culture, beliefs. So there's like a lot of things under the surface that we don't really get to see a lot. And that makes it even a bit harder to keep them in mind. And I think, especially as product managers, but also generally, we always think of ourselves as the people that know best what we have to do, how we have to build a product, what it should look like, how it should work. Yeah, we're doing user testing and stuff, but we bring a lot of bias into this. I think we know best. We are experts in technology, but our customers are the experts in their own lives and their own needs and their own pain points and their own desires. So it's really good to take a step back and make sure that we are at least aware of our own bias. It will always be there because that's how our brains work, and that would just be a whole talk on its own. But maybe think about it. There are tons of bad examples out there, like facial recognition. So many failures within facial recognition. Just Google it and you'll find so many examples. Blood pressure measuring devices that don't work on dark skin. Let's not ruin the mood with all the bad examples, but be sure there are a lot of those. So how can you actually add some Jedi mind tricks to your discovery and delivery or product management work, or even hiring? Because, the thing is, hiring is awesome, but most of the time we can't go in and just fire everyone and start over. That's not really how it works. And if you pay into cultural change to improve hiring long-term, then you need to also, as I said, make sure we have the environment to actually keep the people there. Quick reminder for people who might not actually be building products all the time, every day, like most of us here on the panel do. These are just like the general, very rough steps to building product. We do some discovery work where we research, we ideate to come up with solutions, we hopefully prototype and validate, we build and ship, and then we learn from what we've built and shipped. Okay, keep that in mind for the next one, because now let's focus on what we can do at this moment right now. And I would suggest to just evaluate which of the steps are not being inclusive, the steps that we take to build products. And there can be impact on several dimensions. And I've just brought you a few questions that you can possibly ask along the way. So like, what is the impact? Who am I talking to? So let's say in my research phase, I will do some market research. So am I looking into the impact on small local businesses maybe? Am I actively including Black or queer queer-owned businesses, for example? Do I have representation? When I do user research and talk to people, same thing. Do I have wide representation in the interviewees? Or, am I only talking to people who are just exactly like me to confirm what I want to hear anyways? It might be a bit harder, but there's things like, are my facilities where I do the interviews, are they wheelchair accessible? It's a small question, but it might actually exclude people. Am I compensating for interviews? Am I asking people questions to make billions of dollars with it? If I'm Jeff Bezos, well, he's probably not talking to anyone anymore, but do I compensate fairly for the insights that I'm getting? If I create personas, are they just a representation of or do they actually represent minorities? And if so, are they more than just stereotypes? Are we, when I do testing again, do I ask everybody, is my prototype accessible? Is like the contrast high enough? Is the language easy to understand? What about people who can't read well or have dyslexia? And there are so many small things. We can never think of all of them, but we should at least try to think of as many as we can. Am I building something to be exclusive so that it's scarce and it's like an iOS only app? That's that's a decision against other people, and people with lower incomes usually can't afford iOS devices. So do you ever think about that? Yeah. And there's just there are so many different things on accessibility. Lighthouse is a great tool to just check out how you're doing in that department. And this leaves me here. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. You're all Obi-Wan Kenobi now. Let's just quickly go over it again. So we're designing with the people and not just for them, because they're the experts on their own lives. Check where you're at and what's still missing. Kind of train your own empathy. Ask yourself some questions and start with the little things. Because, none of this should be an afterthought. It should be baked into your process. And it's so much easier to start small, like we just heard. And, always remember, it's more important to get started than to be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I don't even know what to add there. That was super, super awesome. I mean, I think the statement design with them and not for them is super, super impactful. And I mean, just in general, you're just asking us a lot of questions to think about, which I guess that's what it comes down to, building your teams or building designing an inclusive product. You need to ask yourself and others these questions and be pretty self-reflective. So thank you. Lots to think about. And now we've got our third speaker on to Bertrand Rothen, who is a freelance product consultant at Cardi V. He's going to be speaking to us today about respectful stakeholder conduct.
Hey everyone, thanks very much, of course, for having me, and thanks to all the people that tuned into this. I mean, I really respect everyone's dedication to tune into these things, and I'm really grateful for everyone who shows up to these. Yes, thanks very much, Amber, for introducing me. I thought I could find a snazzy title for my presentation, but then I went back on a few things, and then in the end I was just then none of them really worked. So I just thought I'm just going to put a few giraffes in the back because I like giraffes, and then just thought I'm good to go. Of course, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I mean with this, where I come from with this topic, and then of course I'll try to also give you a few to the audience, to give you a few small tips on how to just these micro improvements or just kind of tips from my side on how to move forward with this. So First of all, of course, the typical intro slide. I've been in product management since 2014. I've been freelancing since 2019. As Levi actually already mentioned, we do run a blog on freelance product management, which is aptly titled freelanceproductmanager.com. So good SEO, right? And also based in Hamburg, and I do play drums as kind of a little bit of an odd tidbit about myself. So if you do type my name into YouTube, you'll mostly find drumming videos, if you dare. And then of course, do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you, and of course, I'm happy to answer any questions later that might come up. I do think that I might need to run through everything a little bit quickly, so I wouldn't be surprised if there were questions, so feel free to submit them, of course. So I guess everyone who is in product management or knows about product management has heard this before. Like, product managers need to say no. They need to be great at saying no, and it's being treated like a skill. I mean, you don't have to just believe or take my word for this. This is actually like a thing. I randomly just Googled this and took the 4 first results. Like, you can get much more of these. And I mean, what I think is kind of a common thread here is that people or treat this as like a skill or something that that is good for product managers to know how to say no. It's like something you acquire as a skill, and then you're good at saying no, and it's great. But for me, this is kind of, I thought, like, why? Like, what's the background of this? And I mean, of course, I understand the general premise. Like, you need to level with people and manage expectations. I get that, yeah. But why is saying no even like difficult in general? And I mean, I just took the screen grab from Joshua Malden's presentation on conflict resolution for people who hate conflict. This is actually a great talk. I attended it in 2019. We could still just go to events and travel like to Portugal and just sit in a room full of people. And the talk was great. Like, I don't intend on giving him any shade, but what I gleaned from this is people who hate conflict. So product managers don't feel or are hesitant to say no initially because they don't like to be unpopular. But to me, the question is, aren't we maybe focusing, if we're just thinking about this, aren't we maybe focusing on the wrong thing, which is a little bit too self-focused in this moment? So let's just kind of like flip the script a little bit and ask, what about the stakeholder in this situation? So of course, these are people that have valid requests, and just because they might not be the best at articulating them in the first moment, or because they don't understand the full circumstance, that doesn't mean that they should be, you should sharpen your no knife, and that's like the best thing you can do. So I feel like the center of this conversation should rather be empathy, and how you can get, not sharpen your no knife, but sharpen your empathy knife, so to say, for the lack of a better comparison. And of course, this might seem trivial, but hear me out. So of course, first you need to just like really understand the problem. And of course, listening goes into this, right? So paying attention to what people are describing, how they're describing, and helping them also to maybe describe their problem better, because of course they sometimes might jump to solutions. But of course, this is something you can give back to them just to be able to articulate this better. And then of course, second of all, it's on you to do the research of what is the desired outcome that this person is intending to have when they come up to you with something, and of course try to understand, is this something that is maybe driven by let's say a motivation that is not very favorable, or something that is actually favorable and it's something you might not have seen at first glance. And then of course, in a situation in which you do need to turn them down, then of course you need to focus on, first of all, doing your own research and making sure that your decision is in your organization's best interest and not in your own. And then you have, basically, it's on you to explain to them how your decision benefits ultimately everyone, and how basically if they draw back on their request, they're helping everyone else to succeed. And I think this is the single best way of how you're going to get someone on your side, even though you're basically not doing what they initially wanted. But to really also, this is, of course, this also shapes an organization and a team and really strengthens people. The reason why I bring this up is the principle of disagree and commit. I mean, I know this is mostly associated with Amazon, but it was there before Amazon. So, before it was cool, or before it was not cool, or whatever. Anyway, so this is about individuals being allowed to disagree while the decision is being made. But once a decision has been made, everyone must commit to it. So this is basically as a method to avoid this consensus trap where if people feel like they are entitled to when they disagree with something, to also not endorse it, not commit to it, it's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you're saying like I'm not gonna endorse this because I think it's not gonna work out, and your contribution is important, then yeah, it's not gonna work out. And then you can say I told you so, but in truth, I just made it so, right? So it's actually your fault at the end of the day. And I like this principle of just being able to have a healthy conversation in which you have different opinions, but at the end you recognize that you're all on the same team, and that's like the most important thing that's going to drive things towards success. So just to kind of throw this in there, I like to give people like a few little things at the end to just kind of take away with this, like small things that you can maybe even do right away, that you can think about considering doing in order to improve that. And so the first thing is, my name is like a little bit complicated. So I frequently get emails that, misspell my name. And of course, this is not, I don't lose sleep over this, but still, I can imagine that someone with names that are less common than mine face this much more. So I do take the time, especially with people that have more complicated, more outlandish names. I do take the time and learn the names. I ask them like, where's the name from? I think it's interesting. How do you pronounce it? How is it actually properly pronounced in maybe the native language from which it's from? And not just because I think it's interesting, but I really think it's a respect issue. And I do recognize a strong correlation with people that misspell names regularly, and people that have a lack of respect for other people. Of course, there's the issue of dyslexia. I have to of course mention this, that if you have trouble with with written content, then of course, and I do recognize this as a pattern as well, and that those people are of course fully excused. But I do see this behavior mostly, from a management level where, sometimes there's basically an implicit lack of consideration. So this is definitely something how you can make someone feel respected and feel valued and feel included. Second thing is, this is something I feel like is really key, is knowledge bases. So people that are asking maybe the same questions over and over, you want to give them an FAQ, but you're like, I don't have the time to write an FAQ by myself. You don't need to. Train everyone on how to collect FAQs, on how to collect content, and then you start building that FAQ, and it's going to be a group effort. It might not be as polished as if you had an expert documenter build it, but it's going to be about the spirit and about bringing everyone together, and that's how it really improves the team process. And as a third thing, for anyone who hasn't noticed it, LinkedIn introduced the possibility of adding pronouns on LinkedIn, and of course, even if you're just like a straight white guy like me, you can still include them, because it's not about you, it's about the people for whom it is. It's actually important to include the pronouns. You stand by them. It really costs you literally nothing. If those 10 seconds of your time are valuable, then please. But it really is a good example of showing empathy and really kind of just contributing, instead of thinking, how can I say no to just something like, to drawing barriers and whatever. I feel like some of this publications do imply originally. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for the attention. I hope I was not too much over time.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. No, I think, love the old sharpen the empathy knife. That is a good one.
Maybe a little bit of an odd comparison, but
I like it though. It's great. A bit weird. But yeah, no, I think, as you're saying, like, definitely having healthy conversations to drive the things to success. And names and the use of pronouns on LinkedIn as well is amazing that LinkedIn's doing that. And I mean, I started using my pronouns on LinkedIn, I think, before they added that feature. And I did get a few people reach out and ask questions of why are you using these, and every little conversation I think you have definitely helps. Cool. And then last of all, but certainly not least, we have got Marissa Silk, who is Chief Product and Technology Officer from Fundport. She's going to be giving us a workshop on how to canvas your way to product vision. Thank you.
Great. So hopefully you're seeing a bright blue slide. Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm Chief Product and Tech Officer at FinTech startup Fundingport. And while I was living in Sydney, I participated in a workshop that was based on a lightweight product canvas. And the last step of this workshop involved writing a vision statement for our new product. And it turned out that the artifact from this workshop was super useful for our team and communicating with stakeholders. And so since that time, I've taken that framework one step farther, and I developed my own version of the product canvas, which can be used to facilitate a vision workshop with your team. My extended version of the canvas will provide the prompts for your workshop. And when you're done, you'll have a clear product vision with supporting evidence that can be used with your team and with stakeholders all the way from discovery through to delivery and growth. I strongly believe that this workshop is like a Swiss Army knife for product teams because the same format and prompts can be adapted for upcoming feature development, brainstorming a new product idea, or even doing a 3-year envisioning exercise. So without further delay, let's have a look at the canvas. Your workshop can be run in person using a huge wall, washi tape, and some Post-it notes, or online using a virtual whiteboarding tool like Miro or Mural. I like to block 4 or 6 hours so that the activity doesn't feel rushed. And this provides plenty of time for working in small groups, discussing, sharing back, affinity mapping, and then coming to alignment. And additionally, I like to combine this workshop with other activities to create the perfect kickoff week. So here's how I facilitate. First, make sure that you invite all potential collaborators, including management level colleagues. Break your team into small groups of 2 to 3 people and give them 5 or 7 minutes to brainstorm against the prompt and discuss together. Then ask your groups to share back, and you can expect moments of clarity and agreement, but also fierce debate. And when you're done discussing, move to the next prompt. Each prompt should build on the one before. Your brainstorm will start with the problem statement. Next, you move on to target audience, their needs, and features that might solve those needs. Then look at your product's unique value proposition, how you'll measure success, and what happy users would sound like. Finish by coming up with experience principles and your product vision statement. In a lot of companies I worked for, someone would come to me with a new idea for a feature or problem to solve like this one. Let's help our readers engage with news in a more transparent way. So today I'm going to use this example to show how you can use the product vision workshop to think through this request from a product management perspective. Start your workshop off by defining the problem space. You'll want to agree on a single problem to solve before moving along to the other prompts. When running this workshop in Europe, I found that defining the problem is the most difficult part of the canvas. And my hypothesis is that many companies are used to spending time in the solution space and are less comfortable exploring problems to solve. So if your team is struggling to clearly articulate the problem, you might need to do more work to validate your options before continuing. A problem statement is not a solution phrased in another way, and you really should resist the urge to start with a solution. For example, give people access to diverse content is a solution and not a problem. Stanford's D School says that a good problem statement provides focus and frames the problem, inspires your team, informs criteria for evaluating competing ideas, empowers your team to make independent decisions, and prevents you from creating concepts that are all things to all people. The more specific your problem statement, the better. Once your problem is defined, consider your audience. Who are we solving this problem for? And the aim here is to identify a single group or maximum 2 groups who will be using your product to solve the defined problem. These groups are typically different to segments or roles, but could align with your personas. And if you don't define the problem and the users up front, you risk building the wrong solution. Now, think about what those users need from your product. What are their pains or jobs to be done? I like to encourage my team to write on their stickies using I statements to build empathy with the users. Prompt number 4, features, is usually the most fun part because it creates this wild flurry of stickies. This one is usually the easiest for teams, especially when they're more used to being in that solutions mode. So what are some features or services that would solve your users' needs? But keep in mind that what you define here doesn't translate one for one onto your roadmap. These features are just the starting point for prototyping and research that would typically be done as part of a discovery phase. Once you've identified features, the unique value proposition is next. Try to come up with maximum 2 or 3 UVPs, which will shape your future go-to-market plans. Ask your team, why is your product special? How is your product better than what your users are already doing? And why should they use your product? And better yet, why should they pay for it? Now, jump ahead to the future. What metrics should you track to know that your product or feature is successful? And what's the expected value for the user or for the business? And then look at success from another angle. What would happy users say about your product? And similar to the needs brainstorm, I really like to write these as quotes from the point of view of the user. Once the main prompts of the board are filled in, it's time to come up with your experience principles. Experience principles, sometimes called design principles, reflect your product's core values and priorities. And ideally, your experience principles are based on research and incorporate what your team has already learned about your users' needs and wants. And they should also reflect an understanding of the business needs and your brand positioning. You can use your experience principles to support your decision-making and reduce misunderstandings within your team and with stakeholders. Following along with our news app idea, here are some example experience principles. Like the needs and quotes, I like to phrase these from the user's point of view to continue to build that empathy. I recommend coming up with 3 experience principles for your product. More than that will be too hard to remember and will become overwhelming to use to make decisions within your team. And it's totally okay to start with one set of principles and then refine or adjust them when more information is available, for example, following user research. And last, it's time for your product vision statement. A good product vision is both aspirational and actionable. It should describe the why behind your product and illustrate the value that your product brings to your users. Alongside your experience principles, a clear product vision statement will help you and your team make decisions, focus, prioritize, and work towards your goals. You can use a templated approach for your product vision statement, but I actually advocate for something much shorter and easier to remember like this one. For example, our vision is to burst filter bubbles with equal unbiased access to news. A great vision statement can be recalled by every single member of your extended team. And it's okay if your vision statement isn't perfect on the first try. Like the experience principles, the vision statement can be refined as your team begins to work on defining and delivering your product experience. All right, so you ran this workshop, but what happens now? I like to create a digital one-pager of the Canvas where I attempt to summarize and prioritize the ideas from the brainstorm. And you might be wondering, like, why a one-pager? But the reason is simple. It's actually super hard to get all of the ideas into a single page, even if you cheat a bit and reduce the font size. Distilling big, complex ideas into a simple and readable artifact that the whole team can use is part of what makes the PM job fun, right? When presenting this topic in the past, I've always been asked for an example of what the completed Canvas should look like. So here it is. And I promise that creating this one pager is worthwhile for you as the product manager. Streamlining the workshop content will help you to begin to form a point of view about your product, your problem space, potential solutions, and your overall vision. After you've summarized your Canvas, let it sit for a day or two and then reread it. Does it accurately reflect the discussion? Does it tell a story, and will it inspire your team? And once you're happy with where you've landed, share it back with your team and your stakeholders and actively ask for feedback. Your product Canvas should become a living document and a reminder of what you're working towards and why. I'll leave you with one final tip for facilitating this workshop, and it's all about timing. You could run this workshop as soon as a new idea comes up and then validate the assumptions in your Canvas as part of discovery. Or you could come into the workshop with insights from product analytics and user research and build the Canvas about around what you already know about your users. But personally, I like to run this workshop twice. First, after a new idea is presented, when there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and then a second time after we've run more in-depth research to validate whether or not we are on the right track. So don't be afraid to refine your Canvas as you continue with your discovery and planning. I like to refer to the Canvas frequently, especially when making critical decisions or aligning with stakeholders. So thanks very much for listening, and I hope that today's talk has given you the tools to facilitate the vision workshop with your teams. And that bit.ly link at the bottom is so that you can download the product Canvas yourself.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Marissa, and thank you for making that available to everyone as well. We can make sure that we share that after as well in case anyone doesn't catch it off the screen. But yeah, very, very powerful canvassing tool, and yeah, especially like it, empowering your team with a well-designed and thought out product statement as well. That's really good. So thank you. So yeah, we've got some time for some questions now as well. So I'll just go, I think there was some written in the comments, and then we've just got one in the Q&A from Havel, who's just said, what's the minimum time of a project it's worth to hire a freelancer for? So I think, Levi, you may want to answer this one.
Yeah, sure. I think it's hard to say like it has to be at least a month or a week. I think it always depends on what are you trying to achieve. I mean, I shared some situations in which it might be useful to hire a freelancer, for example, some coaching or impulses, or even feature discoveries. And of course, if feature discovery can probably not be done in 1 or 2 days, you need maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks. It always depends. But if you talk about coachings or like setting small impulses of how to do some things, it can also be a day or 2 days. And the important thing here is to make sure that you document what you want to achieve, that you find the right person that can help you with, and then that you discuss like a time frame that fits and set some KPIs to measure like if it was successful or not. So I think personally it would be also like totally fine to join a company for 3 to 4 days or something like that. Always depends on the goal. I hope this kind of answers it.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in as well. If you've got anything to add, Bertrand.
I mean, from my perspective, I definitely, first of all, of course, I fully agree. It heavily depends on the use case. I mean, I guess in this case, if maybe we're talking about delivery as a focus, as in like you're brought in to, like as an example, do an interim job or work on a project that's delivery focused, where it's not about really scoping or like figuring out what the problem is, but you're going more into actually just executing, then I think I would honestly say anything under 2 months might not really be rewarding, in the sense of still, if you get onboarded pretty quickly within like 1 or 2 weeks, you know, if you're only there for a month, then you basically have 2 good weeks of delivery and you're gone again. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Then of course, in situations where you're just there to basically ramp up a new process really easily, and you're doing a little bit of delivery, but mostly coaching people that are then supposed to just take this over as a framework, I think 4 to 6 weeks could be enough. But from my own perspective, I would say at least 2 months, really, if you're focused just heavily on delivery. So.
Cool. And yeah, this one is for you, Lisa. So as I already said, loved the designing with them and not for them statement myself. But then, yeah, beyond user research, what would be the best way to involve customers in the product development life cycle?
Yeah. So of course you can do like your general interviews and then validating ideas and assumptions, which happens a little bit later, but it's still discovery. But also just continuously talking to people. So this is something that you should do anyways. Continuous discovery is a thing that will help you to keep in touch, because if you look at discovery as a one-time thing, you'll miss when things start to change, and then at some point your product might get irrelevant because you never ask people again after your initial research. And I think it is just something that you should continuously do and continuously have people in there. And I had at one company where I was working, they actually had one person to support all of the different product teams to make sure that accessibility, as one example, is baked into every product and not an afterthought where you're just like, oh, we forgot all the alt image text and we got to add those now. But it's just like it became continuous education, and then became actually just a thing that we just wouldn't forget anymore, because it was part of it. And I would like at a design and be like, I don't think that contrast is intense on it. Like we need more contrast there. That gray is not dark enough. So you kind of learn to just make it part of your everyday practice.
Oh, and Marissa, one for you here, just saying, great, thank you. Doing a product vision workshop, would you recommend that the product lead is the moderator of this, or should you hire an external moderator?
This one's tricky. And I think, I mean, like all product questions, the answer is it depends, sadly, but let me see if I can explain better. So in the past, like as kind of product lead, I facilitated this workshop for my team on many an occasion. Oftentimes I like to have my Scrum Master, if I have a Scrum Master or design colleague, like if I have these people in my team, then having a co-facilitator definitely helps, especially if your group is huge. And I've run this with as few as like 10 people and as many as 50. So especially like in these sort of before times where you could have tons of people in a huge room with a gigantic wall and like a physical canvas that you've created. I mean, you can have a lot of people brainstorming with really this flurry of stickies. It's very special. So the truth is that it depends on your skill set. So if you're the product lead and you think, actually, it's more beneficial for my team for me to contribute and be a participant in this workshop than asking another product person or asking someone from a different team or even outside your organization can really benefit the situation. But if you think, okay, maybe my team doesn't have that much maturity, and as the product person, I'd like to facilitate this to guide the conversation in a particular way, not to bias it, but to help stakeholders think about things from a new perspective, especially if they're not used to these types of activities, then you as the PM maybe want to like keep the reins for yourself. So I think it depends on a few things, like your skill set with facilitation, who else is in your team, the level of maturity in your own squad, how many people you have, and who else can be there to support you.
And then we've got any examples of how the result is formulated for a freelance product manager, as it's hard to identify when the product manager's job ends. I don't know if Levi, you wanna?
I can try.
You be the freelance guru, so.
So what I always do with clients is doing this format from Xing. I think it's like this really German word, Auftragsklärung. In English, it might be like task clarification or something like that, where you sit down for half an hour or 1 hour. It always depends on the context, and where define like what is the current situation, and what is the future goal that you want to reach, and what is hindering you in achieving this, where do you see like risks, and you can do like the whole thing, like the complete Auftragsklärung, task clarification, or break it down on the phase. And what I always like to do then is, after you have like filled up this little something, maybe you have a Confluence page or something where to find what you want to achieve. I like to write down some KPIs, like key performance indicators, which I think is really important. So you have a look at what you want to achieve and how you can measure it. And if you have those like outposts of your goal, you can think about how to approach this. What should be the next steps? And always like have a look on the KPIs if you're on the right way. And I think it's really important here to not focus on the output, but always on the outcome of the result. Like is it really like adding value what you're doing? And some people think it's a bit overhead to do this work before you start with the project or contract, but I think it's really worth the time, because you need to align on what you want to achieve together, and yeah, like documented in this Auftragsklärung and KPIs. I hope this answers it.
And yeah, this one's for you, Bertrand. So great advice on how to turn people down, but what happens when the stakeholder doesn't take your no for an answer?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I guess I'm gonna put it this way. I feel like I have been fortunate enough that I have very seldom actually had this situation, especially with people that are that are not in a hierarchical position of like basically just overturning my advice. And these situations are different. When I'm just saying like with a regular stakeholder interaction, it's more on a peer-to-peer basis, then I do feel actually fortunate that I've been able to usually level the conversation to a point where I get people to buy into the decision. When it goes across hierarchy levels, then I have kind of shifted towards, especially because of course, as a freelancer, you're basically, you're a consultant on a certain level, right? So you give people suggestions on how to do it best. And of course, you have the burden of backing it up, like why you've come to this. But at some point, I acknowledge that as a stakeholder from a higher management perspective may overturn well, it's not my decision, but it's my recommendation. May overturn my recommendation, and then I'm honest with them. I tell them I would honestly not recommend that you do this, but of course, it's ultimately your call. So if you want to do it a different way, I will disagree, but I will commit. And you my own dog food, right? So and then I will try to make the best of that decision. And again, I feel fortunate to not have had a lot of these situations. I could of course tell you that I'm great at resolving these things, but I might just be lucky with the people that I work with. So yeah.
I would just add that like just bringing evidence of some sort usually helps with not actually getting to that point. And then the other thing is if you actually end up in a conflict, which is not just disagreeing, but like actual conflict, I personally can recommend empathy and escalation as your strategy there, because bring as much empathy as you can, but if you can't resolve it on your own, go escalate it, talk to the next person that can actually help and resolve it. Because sometimes we just get stuck and that's totally okay. And then we can ask for help.
That's a good point, involving someone else to basically influence something that is at odds through like a kind of a gridlock situation. That's a good point.
And we've got another one here for you, Marissa. What is the best approach to what is the best approach to identify what the audience needs? I think I've asked, I hope I've asked.
No, it's okay. I understand what the question is. And this is like one of my favorite parts of the process. So during the chat, I briefly mentioned, hey, you can actually like extend this as part of a bigger kickoff week. And sometimes a way that you could lead into your user needs is one, by doing some research. I always like to advocate for research. You could dig into your product analytics as well, but actually you can add on an empathy mapping exercise to your set of activities. So you've seen the little diagram before. It has a face in the middle and usually has this kind of X design, and then sometimes has pains and gains at the bottom. And so basically through this extra brainstorm, what you do is put yourself in the shoes of this person and think about what they like see, hear, think, feel, do in their regular day-to-day and how it involves your potential technology. And then you can think about things either in terms of like jobs to be done or in terms of pains and gains. And then you can take the result of this set of workshops. And then when you go to brainstorm the user needs, you're like, oh, I have them, they're right here. I mean, in an ideal case, you would also like have real data that backs that up. So you might take your empathy map and you might go like validate that with some real people who fit that persona or that archetype. But you could also, like I said, do this upfront before you do any research. And you can start with this empathy map and then steal over some of those Post-its, like literally move them across on your Miro board or your mural or your real wall, and then fill up your needs column like that. And then you can validate it afterwards just the same.
And yeah, Lisa, I would love to know as well if you have any resources on accessibility you can share with us in the chat as well.
Yeah, I have at the very end of my presentation a slide with a bunch of different resources, and generally the easiest thing everybody can do is to go right click on any page when you're on Chrome go to the Inspect tab, and there's Lighthouse in there. This is a tool. You can also access it from other parts, but it's a tool created by Google that will measure your page's performance and loading speed and whatnot. And it also, and SEO and stuff, and it also has an accessibility score. This is a great starting point because they will actually tell you why your score is a certain way. So they will tell you like, oh, contrast here is not great, or none of your images have an alt text. So you actually get a little to-do list of things you can do straight away with your website, your web application, those kinds of things to just get you started and think about these things. And once you kind of start thinking about it, you can then dive deeper into certain topics. It also depends on who your product is for and who you need to and want to include. I can generally, if you think about it as, oh, I should do that later, but it's not priority right now, just rephrase that in your head and tell yourself, I'm excluding people who, I don't know, are hard of hearing, who, I don't know, have like low vision. Just turn that around for yourself and see how you feel then. Definitely helps prioritizing it.
Can I add a couple more things?
Sorry,
If that's okay. So in terms of resources, I know like Envision kind of died and isn't cool anymore, but actually like the Envision blog is a really amazing resource for accessibility write-ups. So some of the best things I've learned about how to bring accessibility topics into my product work came from blog posts from Envision. So highly recommend a Google there because I don't have a link handy, but they're really useful. I also want to mention, just to further on from Lisa's point, actually like accessibility and like incorporating accessibility into your designs upfront is actually less expensive. So if you were to like cost out like old-fashioned spreadsheet style with like resources and effort and whatever, and you cost it out, like how much does it cost your business in order to like make things accessible the first time you do them, rather than to do like an accessibility project? It's actually much cheaper to make your product accessible in the first place. So if you need some like business numbers for your management team, I can promise you that building accessible products is much more affordable than if you try to make them accessible after the fact.
Cool. And then, yeah, just finally, I don't know if maybe as panelists you have any questions for each other or anything as well, just before we wrap up.
I had some questions, but then they either were already answered in the amazing other presentations. So I was like, I'm going to ask it. No, okay, she already told us all the cool examples. So.
Well, that's a great presentation then. Success. Awesome. Well, no, okay. Well, we will wrap things up then. So I just want to say a huge thank you, first of all, to all of our panelists for joining. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentations and your talks, and yeah, thank you so much for helping us with this. And then also to everyone that has attended as well, thank you so much for being part of it. I hope that you have gone away with some really good takeaways. There will be a recording available as well, so if anyone did have to drop out early or wasn't able to make it, we will have something online soon. And yeah, is there anything else I've missed, Faustine? I don't know.
No, all good. Thank you all so much for these amazing talks. And yeah, thank you to everyone who attended. It's been a lovely evening.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, it was amazing.
In real life next time.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.